Dear Venerable Sisters and Brothers, Dhamma friends, now it's time for our question and answer session. I will start with what is already written, and if there are any other questions or any statements or topics, you are invited. Please, you may use the mics and present to the gathering. The first question, the Venerable Bhante, apart from the jhanic factor which are antidotes for the five hindrances, can you please tell us the corresponding meditation techniques to overcome the five hindrances? This is also corresponding to each and every hindrances. There are samatha method, that is pure concentration methods, and vipassana method, that means insight. As I mentioned yesterday, partly kama chanda, the sense of desire, you can fairly take under control with the meditation on repulsivity of the body. That is, you are just suppressing them and keeping under control. As far as that repulsivity is effective and active, the sensual desire will go down. But in the Satipatthana Sutta, in the Dhammanupassana, as far as the vipassana is concerned, you can just be aware of the arising and existence or the prevalence and the cessation of the sensuous desire. So this is very direct method. Exactly the same mindfulness you are directing to that, without pushing it off or without considering it as an enemy. Just see the arising, the beginning, the middle and the end of the sensual desire. As far as the hatred is concerned, the ill will is concerned, the metta bhavana, the loving kindness is the antidote as far as samadhi is concerned. And vipassana, still you can be aware of its beginning, the middle and the end, and directly face to face with mindfulness. That is the vipassana technique. And for the sloth and torpor, it says that walking meditation is good, and light perception, aloka sanya. For that, either your own light perception in meditation, or otherwise you have to do it in a physical way. When the sun is rising, you are facing the rising sun with the closed eyes, and you turn the neck in such a way, get all the angles possible, one end of the eye to the other eye, by turning your head. And then you get the light perception, and that is working against the sleepiness. And walking meditation is, of course, both samatha and vipassana. But in the vipassana, or as far as Dhammanupassana is concerned, you can be aware the beginning, the middle and the end of sloth and torpor. If it is fallen to sick, you can see only the beginning and the end. In the middle, no. And the doubt and the anxiety or agitated mind, the remorse and the agitated mind, for that there is no direct antidote as such, but sometimes the recollection of the death will make and give an answer for the remorse for the past and future. You have to understand you are considering these things are existing ever. That is why you consider the past and the future, and avoiding be in the present moment. But when and where you develop the urge with the help of the recollection of the death, you'll be more alert to the present moment. So the sloth and torpor, that can go. And the doubt is concerned, generally the Buddhanusati, the recollection of the Buddha, is known as the antidote as a samadhi is concerned. For anything, vipassana, you are just facing it. You see the beginning, the middle and the end. That is how, in a precise way, one can present antidotes both with respect to Samatha and Vipassana. Dear Venerable Sir, when the breath has calmed down and seems to be disappeared, how not to interfere with anticipation, excitement, fear, or the trying to control, doing nothing feels like the biggest challenge in the world. That is true. Exactly the same technique you have to use when and where the body, the mind, the breath become calm down. The mind agitation, some prolification, that is naturally starting. And you won't believe when such openness happen, the sensuous desire also tend to increase. And some people develop hatred, and sloth and torpor also outcome, and remorse, anxiety, perpetuation, the perplexity, or the doubt can happen. You sometimes may see they are increasing, because it is coming without any distraction, directly coming. So it appears like increasing, possible. Under such circumstances, only you can do vipassana techniques when and where the anticipation, excitement, fear, trying to control things happen. Be aware what is the most frequent visitor and try to be with it, the beginning, the middle and the end. So there's no way to uh, not to interfere, but at the beginning you see unwillful interference is happening. You observe them vigilantly, diligently, without claiming this is me or this is mine or this is myself. But things are happening, things are crop up. And while observing, without trying to push it off, without trying to cling and assume, slowly they loses the power. So it, as mentioned, the biggest challenge in the world, it is true, but if you are using it in a very patient way, slowly, just like the breath, when it comes to its natural code, usually ceases to exist. So there is the real patience you have to use to be with them and to understand even there is no voluntary will or anticipation or any motivation, things are happening, and you have to use the disclaimer and keep as much as possible face to face with them. Even these things are going to take you for a ride. Sometimes after a while you will come to know, but by more familiarization, slowly you develop the mastery upon that. So you have to be very patient there, and sitting to sitting, the combination will be changing, but technique is the same. Just face it, don't get agitated. Main thing is not to worry. Dear Venerable Sir, in your opinion, how much should one follow the guidance of the particular Kalyana Mitta, and how much should one simply conduct one's own experiments with the truth? So both you have to use, because if you see the Buddha, or if you see that kind of a first class Kalyana Mitta, definitely you can be attracted to, and everything will be sorted out. But as far as we don't have the Buddha itself, we have to take whoever may be better than me. That is the Kalyana Mitta. You can't go for the perfection. Then still you will be developing attention to how to find such a person. So when and where you go, if you find someone better than you, that is a Kalyana Mitta. And therefore you have to have opening to your own experiment also. I feel disillusioned with the Kalyana Mittas, even the purest and noblest kind. Is it foolish to try and go it alone when one still in the Putujana? At the beginning you take the like a walking stick. Kalyana Mitra is helpful, but ultimately what happens is you are depending, trusting upon your own qualities as and when you go further. So therefore you must be liberated from or emancipated from the Kalyana Mitra too. And even your own ways and means, once they have done the job, you must be ready to give it up. And then let the emancipation remains without much dependency on the Kalyana Mitra or your ways and means. Venerable Sir, when you sit to meditate and find it difficult to locate the breath or stay with it, do you take a break and try at a different time? If so, how long should you sit before you give up? No, this is not the only method available. If you find difficult to locate the breath, you just try to be here and now. You start, even the breath is prominent, or even if it is difficult to locate, you must start with here now I am sitting. Once you establish that only, the breath become a secondary guideline. Otherwise, must not wait for, must not chase behind the breath. And at a time, you may find directly going with here now I am, without any reference to the breath, will be very quite a shortcut. Specifically when you are in a retreat, once you familiarize it, not necessarily to depend upon the primary object, because the mind is more friendly, more parallel with your body, so that let the mind to be with the bodily posture and try to entertain this symmetrical, relaxed mood. That itself will be a guideline from the beginning, and it will be a shortcut sometime. Venerable Bhante, can you please explain how to take Sutta and Topa as a primary object in meditation? No, if it is so, you have to take sleeping tablets. This is not the primary object in the meditation. This is always coming and distracting you. Whenever it is there, you deal it with, but do not recognize this as a primary object. And so this is the wrong way of taking. When it is coming and distracting, you understand the perception of the sloth and torpor, and maybe due to the monotonous nature of the mind to the primary object, it take escapism to escape into the breath. Under such circumstances, you try to see its manifestations, characteristics, but it does not mean that you are taking the primary object as the primary, sloth and torpor as the primary object. Bhante, please advise on how we should practice mindfulness when we go back to our normal life in fast-paced and demanding society. So, if you are successful in the retreat, the time away from the sitting and walking meditation, other times you have some tasks to perform and you have some interactions. You have to go for your attending to your bodily needs and all the kind of thing. This is a kind of a rehearsal. Same thing will be accelerated or multitasking at home. So therefore, this is a kind of a rehearsal. So exactly the same thing you have to extend it. And if you are finding undisturbed mindfulness amidst of sounds and the thoughts and the pains, even in sitting, that will be a the promoting factor. Diversification of your mindfulness, that is the same thing you can extend into the day-to-day society, day-to-day life. So therefore, don't consider sitting and walking, only the sitting and walking as the meditation time. Wherever wherever you find it easy to develop mindfulness, all these things you must consider as valuable things, specifically other day-to-day activities, when you are attending to the day-to-day activities. And when you go home, don't try to accelerate and socialization unwantedly. Cut off as much as possible without hinting others, but in a strategic way. So you can assimilate partly a meditation center at home. So both has to come closer. Then you find shifting from here to there may be a little easier. Dear Venerable Bhante, if someone practice according to only one of suttas delivered by the Buddha, is it possible to achieve the goal of Nibbana even now? Yes, because each and every sutta came from the pure original source. So if we can understand the real meaning, not a single sutta has other than the Vimutti Rasa. Vimutti Rasa means that the taste is always liberation. Whatever the discussions, whatever the talks, whatever the discourses of the Buddha have the same taste. That is the Vimutti Rasa. So if you can taste it, but one single sutta would be enough. That is how it happened for that the great characters you find in the canon itself. Venerable Bhante, could you kindly explain if there is a difference between Mano Sankara or Chitta Sankara, however subtle it may be, they are synonyms. Sometimes it is applied like Mano Sankara, in some other places as Chitta Sankara. Therefore, the Mana, Chitta, Vijnana are all considered as synonyms. Dear Bhante, is it mandatory that all yogis begin with the Anapanasati? Please advise if one can begin the focusing one's awareness on the thoughts. I kindly request you to listen to the first talk. Start with something related to your body because it is verifiable, but that does not indicate it is only Anapanasati. And as I mentioned in the early question also, you can start with here now I am. As far as that is the base, the thoughts are happening, that you can be aware of. The pains are happening, the sounds happens, you can do, but taking the thought as the primary object, I have my own doubts. I am not going to criticize other methods or teachers. The Kayanupassana based upon the body is quite the rational, pragmatic, practical point. So therefore, focusing one's awareness on thoughts is a must, but it must not be the primary object. Dear Bhante, please explain the experience one goes through when attending the first Maggapala. Is it gradual process after the initial understanding? We humbly request you to describe your experience with compassion to us. When I read the first part, I know where it is going to, and I would like to know who we are. Then I will deal it with. So whoever may be that we are going to refer as we, if someone can come out, I will give the answer. But till that I will keep the question aside. Venerable Bhante, you talked about the Sankhara Paccha Vijnana as a sort of selection process. Then there is the rising of Vijnana due to the eye and visual objects, etc. Is this the result of the Sankhara or it is the rising of Vijnana difference? It's the same phenomena. Whenever someone is getting the opportunity to see, hear, smell, touch, taste and think, selecting seeing itself is a selection. It's a choice. And when you open the eye, many objects are there. Which one you select, which one you look at, also another selection. And within that objects also a lot of facets, lot of manners are there. And you see what you like to see, and there's a kind of a whatever the relevance. So therefore, even if you are looking selected person, object, there also you see according to the filtering system, and accordingly the Vijnana going to understand that against the what is not, the otherwise. And that is how it make difference, intrinsic features of what you selected and with respect to others. So therefore, Vijnana is a slave of the master Sankara. Sankara is the one interpreting terms as far as it is untrained mind. As far as your mind is not well trained, Sankara decides how the Vijnana is working, and Vijnana obediently carry out the rest of the process. Dear Bhante, can you please kindly give some examples of how one can introduce mindfulness of walking meditation to young children in the monastery's learning environment? The best thing is you have to walk with them. When you are doing walking meditation, if you can incorporate the young children and just walk with them, and that is the best. Otherwise, you can give a little explanation and a demonstration. But best thing is to do walking meditation together with them, and then easily they will understand. But the difficult thing will be that sometimes you have to talk while walk. Because children, they do not know how to walk silently. They are asking this and that question, and therefore you have to do, but discouraging that, you have to just give the walking session. And as I mentioned that Chinnathan, he has mentioned how nice whenever we are walking, if you ask children to hang onto your small finger and doing walking meditation, how inspiring it is. It's aesthetically he has put into that. Therefore, this thing is to give set an example, and they will easily understand and joining to a sitting session. For children, it is much attractive. Basically, Chamiya Sayadaw is the one who first came out with this idea. Because in Burma, there is a Buddhist cultural program. So each and every monastery, specifically the meditation centers, during the April, May, there's a 1 month temporary monkhood for maybe 200, 250 young children, aged from 8 to 18. So they are introduced with this meditation. But he found that introduction of introducing walking meditation is easier than sitting. Venerable Bhante, I am trying to understand the precise meaning of the terms such as feeling, perception and volition. If I see a flower, I might recognize it as a rose, beautiful and fragrant. What is the perception, volition and feeling? In this example, the feeling is that you feel pleasant or unpleasant, upajjati manapang amanapang, desire or undesirability, and perception is you recognize its color, shape, smell, all the kind of thing for future references, or to discriminate from the others that is happening through the perception. And if I see a flower, it won't be just a flower. There should have many flowers. You select only one. That selection is happening through volition. So that whenever Jnanananda put it, whenever you are traveling in the forest, you may see a special flower, but you don't know the name. Then you name it as the flower that I see. That is the way the perception, volition is working. You recognize that flower is the one I have seen. It is the flower that I see. That is the way you are going to recognize it. That is how the volitional or willful action of selection happens. So therefore each and every experience you can understand through feeling, perception and volition. Dear Venerable Bhante, how would one get to know if they went through the first stage of enlightenment, please? What exact experiences she would go through? Please see the other page. According to your Dhamma talks, when the Kaya Vachi Chitta Sankhara subside, is that the time to familiarize oneself with the neutral mind without carried away by other things come into consciousness. The first part is that I can try some examples. Whenever you have a wound and if it's a proper treatment happen, how can you come to know that it is being healed? It's a gradual process. At a time you call, now it is healed. So when you are quite thirsty, when you are drinking, you feel it is quenched. Now it is enough. Or when you feel so much of hungry, and when you are eating at a time, you feel enough. That is how the peak experience also. You come and you feel kind of a satisfaction, contentment. So that only we can explain. Otherwise, there is no criterion as far as the experience is concerned. But some people put it as peak experience or irrevertible experience, irrevertible changes. And theoretically it says the first magga is marked with getting rid of 3 fetters. And Buddha has given one come into the unshakable faith of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and one's own precepts or morality. These are the experience examples one can give. But those who have not experienced and only try to grasp it through this example won't make much of a convincing differences. The second question, yes, this is the way. You have to keep the stream of consciousness as much as possible, as much as the clear, unturbulent, pure, without adding additives or any kind of adjustments. Reverend Sir, what qualities does the Buddha have that an Arahant does not have? In a normal Pali presentation, they show kilesa vasana, that means they are not traceable for someone, but Arahant can have some kind of addictions. They have trained for long since the samsara. These kind of things happen. The cases, 2 cases reported in the case histories. There was one monk that he never climbed down in the depression. He used to jump over it. Whenever you find a pothole on the path, he used to jump. And the other people find it is not fitting to a monk. But then the Buddha says, still he is an Arahant, but he has been 500 previous lives as monkey. So he's jumping. There was another person always calling the other person as a servant. Hey, Vasala. Vasala means they're calling for a very low caste person in the Indian, this thing, coolie or something like that. So he used to call each and everyone as with that. So everyone felt irritated. But the Buddha found he is already enlightened, but he has been a top class, high caste person for consecutive, very long life cycle. So he is having that habit. But in the Buddhas, he never have even that traces when his knowledge comes, the enlightenment happens. Dear Venerable Sir, in Western thought, one is familiar with 3 levels of conscious. The conscious level, subconscious level, and the unconscious level. In the Buddha's use of the word sankhata and asankhata, how do these compare? Sankhata means that the conscious, that means you are voluntarily, you get involved with it. And asankhata means you are not, it is involuntarily happens, but you know whenever the sour thing happens, the salivation happens. That kind of thing you are aware. Sometimes when you go to a people, your throat become dry and difficult to talk. That kind of thing happen, but they are asankhata. But I don't know how much it is going parallel with the subconscious and the unconscious. Maybe some still discriminations must be there, but Venerable Padmasiri Disilla is using the Freudian and Buddhist psychology. He has taken this and talk in his book, but still is not say exact parallelism, but kind of an easy way to communicate with the people, those who have the Western understanding. Dear Venerable Sir, please explain what you mean by the mental preparations. Much merit to you. Mental preparations, this is the term used by Venerable Jnanananda, Katapurundi Jnanananda for Sankhara. And Achan Jeff, what is that, the news, Anisaro, is using fabrication, mental formation, and volition. These are the, volition was a very conventional one you found in the Pali Text Society, and maybe Bhikkhu Bodhi also, the Venerable Jnanamoli also using the same, but when Jnanananda came out with the mental preparation, and Tanisaro Bhikkhu is using mental fabrication, and so a lot of new terminologies. Dear Bhante, the fact that the mind could deal with only one object at a time, coming from the different senses, in quite challenging to experience, even if one could accept the idea intellectually. Is it even more so when it deals with the objects perceived by the eye? When I listen to Dhamma talk and when I see you talk, which part I don't hear and which part I don't see? In this experience, if this experience of thin slicing of seeing things found within the scope of vipassana jnanas, or is it only an experience reserved to enlightened omniscient beings? This is easy to understand it, because mind is so swift. It can, at the thought moment, it can see, and next thought moment, it can go for hearing and smelling, and again come back to the seeing. So it is so swift. So therefore, unless otherwise you have that preparation and observe it, you also will see, in a given time, you can see, hear, smell, taste, touch and think. That is how the ego is coming. When everything is coming to being, the egoistic idea coming. But you see, it is a patchwork. At a time one part, next time other part, next time other part. The deductive knowledge, inferential knowledge, make everything as one. So therefore, as far as you did not separate them out, you see one unit, you see one chunk, and that is easily attributable with the self. For example, when you are observing the breath, if you are feeling the touching place, you can't see the difference between the in-breath and out-breath. And if you can't be aware that you are away from sounds, pain and thoughts, but you are in the breath. Therefore, even among the three facets of breath, the being aware of the breath, the touching point, and the difference between in-breath and out-breath, you can only see one thing at a time. And after long observation only the inferential knowledge put everything and say, it's the same thing, have three facets. But you can't experience it. Experience happening in a different places and put together like recasts, putting into one house or bridge like. So therefore, don't wait till you become arahant or become saint, omniscient being. You have to keep on observing, and just you can see, as a simple example, just to facilitate, when you are in a film, when you are observing a cartoon film, if you observe the projector is flashing one slide to the screen, and then flash darkness, and then flash another slide, little slightly different from the early one, and then again darkness, and again little slightly different slide again, and then the mind make the story going from one to the other in a small animation, but you never see the darkness. You can't see the darkness, but you can see animation. You can see the racing hand, all the kind of thing. And you will understand, without this kind of a thing, animation is impossible. Only animation happen during the darkness. That is the part you project, thinking it's the same person raising the hand, but ultimately they are just drawings. You make the story, so therefore there is no director other than you, the observer. You are the one directing. You are the one making the film. They give raw materials. That is how we do the patchwork in assumed mind. The rational, the mindful mind never assumes such a thing. So one day it can see through. One day it can thin slice the time and see what patchwork we are in. So that's all the questions for the day today. So if there are any other further questions or any statements are there, you may please make use the mic.
Venerable Bhante, on Tuesday's Dhamma talk, I understood that for a person to see, to hear, to smell and taste and touch, you need an object and a sense organ and a respective consciousness. I just wonder how this applies to thoughts and emotions and mental images. Does the mind act as its own object and sense organ and its consciousness?
The raw materials are known as underlying tendencies and influxes. Whenever there is inflow of the objects outside, in order to run the institute, they make objects out of their library shots, storage. So these are the things you brought from the past life or the past, your likings and disliking, and all the things they are resting. So when there is no inflow, they prop up. So they call influxes, or they call proclivities or tendencies, the underlying tendencies. They are waiting. Usually it is being suppressed by the external stimuli, external object. When and where it is out, still if the mind is conscious, the mind is alert, then you can see it happens. And ultimately, if you are not observing them as the influxes and the underlying tendencies, you will be taken for a ride. You will take them as truth and ultimately keep on proliferating. Chain thoughts happen, stories are going on. And the moment you're going to interact with them with liking and disliking, you will be more and more unmindful. You will be more and more deranged. And that is how it happens in the manodwara, the mind base or faculty of mind. So they are mind-made.
Venerable Bhante, you said, in the Rattana Sutra, Kinang Puranang Navang Nati Sambhavang, that means when the old sankharas goes away, that's when that referred to his question. So that process start weaning away the old sankharas in order for somebody to become enlightened.
There's not a single factor of sankhara. Again, I have to come out with the asava, anusaya, influxes and the underlying tendencies. Even the sankhara, there are sankhara also sampajanya, kaya sankhara, vachi sankhara, mano sankhara, asampajanya, kaya sankhara, vachi sankhara, mano sankhara. Sampajanya means that you know you have committed. But there are some other asampajanya that they are happening by habitual way, but you know it. And that is also, sankhara is active and passive form. And besides that, there are some influxes, asava and anusaya, that is tendencies. They also waiting to take a chance when and where there is no sankharas or there is no mental other external objects like visual objects, sounds and kind of thing. And meanwhile, when there is such a gap, so influxes are coming and make the mind busy, make the mind faculty running the show. So it is not only the sankhara, Khinam Purana Navannati Sambhavam, all things are gone. That means your maybe karmic forces, anusaya, asava, or asambajan mano sankhara, anything can help to run the show. Give material, raw material for the mind to be busy, mind to be involved, mind to be proliferating, mind to be making stories.
That's the point. That's what it explained in the sutra.
Yeah, it is Khinam Purana, past has gone, Namannati Sambhavang, nothing to come from outside fresh. So under such circumstances, Khinam Purana, Namannati Sambhavang, Viratta Chitta Ayatike Bhavasmi. The mind is also not yielding for the future, and therefore then and the other piece is there.
May I ask one more question? Yesterday you mentioned that when we are looking or observing one thing, we are punished because we don't see the rest. Could you elaborate on that a little bit further?
It has many dimensions. If you are to focus something, I will take the example like this. When a young child holding a lens to the sun and it's focused to one particular point, that paper will start burning. And that is because that everything concentrated to that, and therefore that particular place is burning. And what happened to the right round? They become a shadow. This light only they concentrated. So in order to concentrate, other place has to go shadowy. It goes to be gloomy. It is not clear. So likewise, if the mind to be focused into one-pointedness, so much thing upon so much thing, you must be unmindful. That is the rational way one has to understand. If you are to observe, very scrutinize on this subject, you must be not worrying about what is right now. Otherwise, your thing will be diluted and you can't focus upon. If you are just using the term focusing, that is the kind of absolute telling. When you are seeing, you are dumb. You can't feel nothing. Only you are seeing. But the next moment, mind is so swift. You may be a hearer, but you may not see. So they are happening in such a quick way. Therefore, you feel like you have the capability to see and hear at a given time. That is because you don't know, your mind is not sharp enough to thin slice the time.
You said it. We are punished because we don't see other things. Is that right?
Maybe punishing may be a misleading word, but I would say if you get a television, have 5, 6 channels. If you have to open one thing, you have to forego 5. So you are being punished. You can see 2 channels at a time. It's exactly the same, but that is not a disqualification or importance of the television. You select one, that means consciously you shut 5. That is the way the mind also working.
But just before that, my question, in television today now you can have several screens on the same.
That calls split mind.
Yeah.
That calls schizophrenic.
Yeah.
That's all the multiple personality. One person play many things. Ultimately, he will be disqualified from the society.
Yeah. What I want to come back is to Yogi's question about the focus and the background. I think there's a word gestalt.
Gestalt.
I think that explains that. Either the foreground or the background.
I please request you to explain the term meaning gestalt, because I read number of books. It says peak experience or something like that. Can you please? It's a psychological term.
Yes, it's a peak experience is this one, but the psychological term from humanistic psychology.
Humanistic? So I would like to get more detail about, I don't get much of feeling, what is the gestalt feeling?
I'm not expert on psychology, but from what I have read, what I have understood is that there are like certain say we have a background, an image, in front. At one point you are focusing on the image in front. Let's say the Buddha statue and then the background is black or something. Then your focus is now on the Buddha statue and the rest becomes foreground. I think the easiest way that I have understood is that to think of background or the foreground and the main object. So there are certain what we call optical illusions that you can look at.
The big Buddha statue, the Buddha statue appearing while looking at for longer time.
Yes. Then because at one time the mind goes back and forth, and then it happens to be that the gestalt is the aspect of one which is protruding with respect to the background which is behind. I think maybe that someone probably, if there's anybody who knows more, you can shed light because I'm not expert on this.
The therapeutic value of the Gestalt treatment. That is what I was interested in.
Anybody who knows about it, you can describe. So maybe we have to do some research on that.
No, there are literature available, but when you read it, very difficult to get the idea because it's communicating some specific experience.
I thought of when you said about the focus and the periphery, that's why it prompted to my mind about the Gestalt.
That means whatever the things given, what you see, you can make it out from the rest of the thing. And that very selection is due to your type of perception, type of volition, and type of feelings. So therefore, whatever in the picture, what you pick, maybe for the first sight, first impression is different from another person. And that is how from the same picture many people can see many facets.
But which of the five aggregates really the mindfulness belong? Is it volitional factor or does it belong to all the five aggregates?
That you can say mindfulness as a mental factor, it belongs not to the materiality, it belongs to the mentality, and it is not feeling, not perception, so it is involved in the volition. And once you taken the mindfulness in the proper shape, it has given the chair, it can look into the materiality from the different eye, feeling, perception, even to the volition from a different point of view, and to the consciousness, the basic for all the mental factors. So therefore, usually it belongs to the sankhara or as a mental factor, but it has the capacity to look into others also once developed into the consciousness of the mindfulness. Mindfulness can take over all the others. It can take all the five aggregates somewhat under control.
So it's a sankhara?
Sankhara.
So it arises from avijja?
Yes. That is why ultimately mindfulness also leading to suffering if you do not know how to tackle it. If you do not know how to make use in a proper way, at a time you have to give up. When it is ready to give up, you must be ready to give up. At that time, if you are going to hold it, and it's a utter suffering. It's a cause of suffering. You are not speaking to the mic. You just tap it and see.
Is that where you willfully can make your karma good or bad? At that point, if you are very mindful?
There is no such a direct relationship with karmic forces. Would you mind to elaborate a little?
No, it says I have a thought or I see something. At the point of volition, if I, rather than get angry and say, let it go, may you be happy, well and happy and whatever, is that where you make your karma?
Of course it is volition is the karmic formation. Volition is responsible. So I will put it in a very, very simple way. Each and every moment has some bearing on our past karma. So now I am bearing a very humiliated situation, depressed situation, and therefore mind is about to react. and your mindfulness all of a sudden come and says, okay, now you are about to react. So there you have a choice. Understanding and appreciating karmic forces, the person presently causing trouble is not the main cause. It is due to my past karma. So if I am now going to react to the person or the agent, I am now again developing new karma that I can have my own control. So whatever may be the difficulty, whatever may be the cost, I will not commit for another karma. That is, mindfulness has to show, and the wisdom has to come and let you know, now you are already in a disadvantageous situation, but don't make a seed for yet another disadvantageous position for future to pay. So there you can stop. And there mindfulness play a diagnostic role, but you must have the determination power, the wisdom, and past experience of that kind of little by little, and that even with that kind of a clenched teeth, you stop it. Otherwise what happens is you open, just burst off. At that moment you feel released, but accumulated so much of seeds for newcomer, and a perpetuation happens. So therefore, understanding the, endless, the enormous karmic forces are happening, knowing that your best restrainment must be not to commit further, and restrain yourself not with the complete neutral mind, but with the effort, but with the willpower and determination, you stop it. And that is how the restrainment of the faculties happen. For that, mindfulness is the first and foremost thing to diagnose. You can't explain what is happening now totally with the present evidence. It has some bearing to the past karma. So with that, don't get committed into new karma. Don't create new volitions, new seeds.
Thank you, Bhante. Just following on that, Bhante, then, is recognition the trigger for thought? So
recognition?
The trigger, the most proximate trigger for thought to generate.
Still, I didn't get to two terms.
Recognition. So I'm making a distinction between cognition and recognition.
Yeah.
So say we see a visual object and it's our recognition, which I understand by way of, I guess, the descriptive term for perception.
Yeah.
Is it the point of recognition that then triggers the generation of a thought? I'm just trying to understand, I guess, the most proximate link between a thought and what generates that.
You're adding yet another aspect into the same phenomena, cognition and the recognition. So we'll say now, the same example I have taken, I am in such a humiliated and depressed situation, and I see an agent who is causing, according to the present moment, and I recognize he or she is the cursor of this my depression. And that recognition with that particular person also a falsified kind of a reification because of my value system, my personality, that will help you to commit into new way of karmic line. But instead, if you understand, if you are going to attribute he or she as a agent or atta or person, then there's a kind as an agent for you to fight. Instead, you consider this as something happening and you take care. Presently, you are in a depressed situation that is partly maybe the agent existing in the present, but partly due to the past karma. And therefore, you give much weight to the past and then don't create a new turmoil. With the recognition of the agent, if you are, for example, if you are taking a human, you have to have a wrong perception that human that you recognize has an atta. They have the soul, they have the essence, then only you can fight it. The best example given to for this particular event is, boatman, Totia, boatman, ferryman. He is sending the people from here to the other shore, and his last return home, he go to the other side, have a shot in the evening, and with the singing, he is coming back in the darkness. So no passengers, he is on the way back. When it is happening, another boat come and hit. And he was so in the mood and he's eating at everything disturbed and start with the whole bloody filthy language and blackguarding the other boat. And he see there's no response. And keep on blackguarding, he see there's no boatman there. The other boat is an abandoned one, just come and hit. Then what happened to his blackguardings? He became fool because he thought there's a boatman, there's an atta there, but there's no atta. Just a floating boat come and hit, and then ultimately he says, what is the use of blackguarding? Exactly the way, supposing there was a boatman there, then what happens? It's a real fighting. So whenever we are finding an agent, always we attribute atta to it, then only the fighting can happen. Maybe you are attributing some unconscious thing or dead matter also. Even then you have to taken up to a certain unit, to a certain entity, then only you can fight. The making entity out of that bloody thing is your own formation. And when you are writing on that kind of in the papers, at the beginning you give an unwanted phrasing to that person, then blackguard is such a bloody fellow, did that kind of a thing. At the beginning you put up on the pedestal and paint white, and then back the fellow. So these all are manifestation. All are volitional thing. I don't know whether that's the same thing you are addressing.
Yes and no. If I could ask another question. So in your Dhamma talk, you talked about during meditation you arriving at a point where the breath cannot be perceived, and then you described how you move towards a stage where it's beyond description. At that point, to some extent I can understand how a thought would not be generated simply because there's no form to describe, so hence there's a voice, like there's nothing to verbalize. But in your day-to-day life, like say you see an object, it's the only way that you could stop the process of generating perception to simply identify it as a process, i.e. seeing, or say you heard a sound, hearing, etc. Like how do we, I guess, become mindful without generating the point of recognition and then start the mental preparations, etc. with the eye, for an example?
To understand, if I understand properly, you start with in-breath and out-breath. Ultimately, it goes to the point where you can't recognize the in-breath and out-breath. Situation is not possible to articulate, and you are awake. Perception is there, but you can't explain it. Under such circumstances, if you want to report it to your teacher, that this is the way it happened, ultimately you can say that I have come to a state where I can't explain. But I can say I am not unmindful. I can say I am not dead. I am not sleepy. All the kind of negatives you can see. But you can't see, you can't pinpoint in the positive, you can't paint the picture. So the matter of recognition from the teacher is his own past memory. With that particular candidate, the meditator come and say, I am helpless. Definitely I went to such a situation, there is no words to explain it. But same thing, if the teacher to cognize or to recognize, he must have his own past experience, then he can do. Otherwise he has to do guesswork. And the same person who is reporting also, whenever wanted to express, whenever wanted to paint a picture about the reality, never successfully you can do it. Anything in the inferior thing, low quality thing, unwanted thing, we have name, shape, all the kind of thing. So therefore Buddha says, anything in the world is defiled by a name. All the defiled things, all the dirty things have names, the pure things intrinsically have no names. Anything in the world we have a name because it has been contaminated. Anything contaminated has the name, shape and its own identity. Which is uncontaminated, it's a pure, it's in the primordial, no name, it is also attributable feature that is called atakkavachara. And that is why the Buddha says, the Nibbana, the very end result is atakkavachara. And that is why the Taoism it says, whatever it may be, which is explainable is not eternal Tao. The crux of it, you can't explain it because language never go up to that level. Language stops where the rational mind stops, where the convention is stops, where the perception is stops. And to go to the purity, there's a mind-to-mind connection. It's called telepathic. So therefore the Mahayana Buddhist literature, it says that only Buddha communicated with Mahakassapa, and that is mind-to-mind. And Buddha was sitting under a tree, and all of a sudden Mahakassapa also came and took a very comfortable seat, and both of them are gone to a deep trance, and then wake up, both. And then the Buddha pick a blooming flower and look at it, and half smile, with the half smile, look at the Mahakassapa, and then the Dhamma transmitted. Now, all the others, what you call Theravada, is nonsense. They say they are epithets, they are their examples. The transmission happened mind to mind, that there is no words, there is no shapes, there is no colors. So that is, they say that Dhamma is such a precious thing. No one can rob, no one can pump, no one can have the authority upon that. That is the reality. So we are going from known to unknown, explainable to unexplainable, perceivable to unperceivable, self to non-self. So this is the trip in the Vipassana. And this part is whenever you are, it's a, how do you call, a tricky subject. Whenever you are going to learn about prapancha, mental proliferation, and you see what limited sphere within which we can get the theory knowledge. We can get the book knowledge, and upon that only everyone has to rest upon. And then only the deductive knowledges happen. But even then, the direct touch, the experiential knowledge is so vast, we have to communicate through this rationality and with the book knowledge. So therefore, the Dhamma transmitting from generation to generation is a real magic. It's a real difficult thing, and it is somewhat mysterious. Not through the books, not through the articulated part, but still somehow or the other it is transmitting. Okay, now we have already taken 1 hour, that time allocated for the discussion. Provided no more further question, we'll stop that session now and go for 1 hour of walking meditation, and we'll be gathering here at 3 o'clock for a group sitting. Thank you very much for the participation.